So I would like everybody to either put their phones on vibrate or turn them off, please, so we don't have any disruptions during the meeting. And once you've done that, then we'll stand and you can join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. So John Alsabrook and Mel Knight have not quite made it yet. I'm not sure if John's going to be able to make it because didn't he have to leave town or something? Yeah. So Counselor Miera? Here. Counselor Woolman?
Here.
Counselor Burkett?
Here.
And Counselor Murray?
Here.
And the mayor's here. I need to, if you guys had a chance to read over the agenda?
Yeah.
I need a motion to approve the agenda, please.
Mayor, I move we approve the agenda for tonight.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a second? Okay, I have a motion for and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Therefore, it's approved. Before the administrator starts, are you going to introduce our new deputy clerk?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, I was going to let Melanie do it.
Yeah.
So can you hear us talking over here?
A little bit.
Okay, so
I hear
Melanie,
you. Yes.
do you have someone you would like to introduce?
I do. We now have a deputy clerk. Her name is Sky DeVivi. Yesterday was her first day. She comes to us most recently from Sprouts. She was the meat and seafood department manager. She has a lovely business degree and experience with HR. And so far it has been a great pleasure working with her. She has lived in the village for a long time. She moved away for a while, but has come back. And would you like to say a few words and say hello?
Hi, everyone. I'm really glad to be part of the village in a different capacity. I live here. I love this village. My family has lived here for 30 years. So seen a lot of changes, very positive things happening in the village. It's really nice to see. And I'm really happy and very excited to be part of this team. So thank you so much.
Welcome.
It's been a while since we've had a deputy clerk. So most of her job duties have been kind of absorbed elsewhere in the village. So we're going to slowly take those back. And she's going to be a huge help to everybody over in the admin office as well as the village as a whole. So
Well, we're
very
glad to
happy that
have her.
she's with us.
We're very happy she's here. And now I'll turn it over to Mr. Curry, Administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. The first place I want to start, as usual, is with Tanya's report on COVID.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Council, Mayor, Administrator Curry. Just got done with a vaccine site. We did all vaccines and kids were part of it. The village is still having COVID, but I'm hoping we have hit that peak and we're plateauing now. We got one case today. So for July, we've had 11 cases so far, which is a lower average than we've been having. We ended June with 95 cases, which was our third highest lab confirmed case rate since the beginning. I'm really hoping we're leveling off because right now, New Mexico, as of the 27th of June, was still BA 2.12 and BA2 was the dominant variant. BA 4 and 5 took over this week as nationwide the dominant variant. And I know we have some in New Mexico, but it's not dominant. So I'm hoping we can see some plateauing or decrease for a while. And maybe BA 4, BA 5 won't hit here. Maybe we won't have another peak rapidly. We are seeing steady increase or steady higher levels of hospitalizations right now, running just below 200. Deaths have still stayed fairly stable, 4 to 7 a day, but they take about, they take about 2 to 3 weeks after the peaking of hospitalizations if they're going to peak. People still are not getting all of their boosters and staying up to date, and that is one of the problems because the Omicron variants as we know, do have immune escape, and keeping those antibody levels high is really important. So if you're over 50, you should be on shot number 4. Unless you're immune compromised, then you probably should already be on vaccine number 5. Everyone else should have a minimum of 3 vaccines so far, so that they keep those antibodies up. Monkeypox, this week has been kind of a hard week because we had the long holiday. We did have last week on Friday cases under investigation in New Mexico. Nothing confirmed yet, but there's only 9 states, I believe, right now without monkeypox. Federal government has started releasing monkeypox vaccines to states that are getting it, and they are vaccinating those most at risk. There has been 1 death worldwide, which is not bad from it, but it is a long-term virus, 10 to 12 weeks of infectious period. So they've really asked healthcare providers to really be on the lookout for monkeypox and get people tested. We're just going to keep vaccinating and keep trying to educate people. And if you know someone who's got COVID, if they're over 50, they meet certain requirements. If they're not sure they've got COVID, tell them to go get tested, because please remember, 5 days. You get 5 days to be able to take Paxlovid, and we have been running into some patients who did not meet those 5 days, and they are very, very sick. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the council? Tanya, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Tanya. The next thing I wanted to mention is, and I mentioned it at the last meeting, that we sent out 8 letters to the folks that live along the south side of Meadowlark regarding the trail. And we have received some responses, but our plan is, what we're looking at is line of sight for folks that are coming out of the 4 cul-de-sacs there. So that's our 8 people that we're looking forward to trying to work with them on their easements that we need to create that line of sight. And we've received responses from about half of them at this point. So the plan is that myself, Michael Chavis, and Steve Groman, or some form of that, will go out and meet with them individually, so that they know what we're doing, and any costs that we have to look at going forward to try to get these right-of-ways secured. The village will bear the cost of that, depending on the particular types of property that they have and the visual lines of sight that they have. So it will take a little bit of time in the process, but I think that we'll be, I'm confident that we'll get it done, but it's the end of at least 20-year project, trying to secure the necessary right of ways that we need, so that people can come out and use that trail adequately, so that there's adequate line of sight. So before I go into the next item, is there any questions on that? Okay. The next item, and I don't think Raina's on, but this has to do, and the mayor and I have discussed this, as we told you about as we went through the budget process. We were looking at our next year's budget of being about $6.9 million as we move into FY23. And there was not a concern, but we did not have the final numbers as to what our total revenue incoming was for FY22. Well, those numbers have come in, and you've seen the GRT that came in for May. The GRT that came in for June was approximately the same thing. It was over $420,000 for GRT in June. And so our total revenue at this point, and Raina is about 95% sure on this number, our total revenue for FY22 at this point is $7.6 million, which is a nice sum of money. So what I'm going to recommend, and I've talked to the mayor about this, is that, we've developed this large amount of money, this large sum of money that is sitting in the LGIP fund in Santa Fe at this point. And over the last 2 years, because of the interest rates, that money has not gained much money because of the interest rates. That has changed. In the month of May, I believe we had a little over $2,000 in actual interest that we picked up on that money. But I think the most prudent thing is, and I think the mayor will jump in anytime he feels like it, is to move anywhere between $600,000 and $800,000 of this fund balance up until the LGIP. And then I would recommend that the mayor then go through those and look at some of the priorities that we might have in the short term to complete some projects that using some of that money so that we can demonstrate to the legislature or to anybody else that when we have money that we're using it, we're starting to plan for it correctly, rather than just having it sit there in the fund. But of course, whatever the mayor might propose in something like that, of course, he'll have to bring it to the council. But it's things, the projects that have a priority and that are in process. And the one that I think of is the sewer line over here on,
Priestley Corval,
yeah, on,
Priestley Corval.
yeah, Priestley Corval Road. And you're looking at a cost there of about $160,000 at this point. But so you'll be looking at, and you'll be hearing from the mayor on some of the projects that we might want to spend some of this money on right away to demonstrate that we're doing something. Another example of things that he might propose that we use it on would be on the demolition and the raising of the Jones House property. We have a number to get that raised and get the asbestos abated in there of about 192,000 on that. So these are projects that we can get moving and demonstrate to anybody that when we've got money and that we know how to spend it wisely. So that was good news. Rena and I were joking that I had guessed that, or had projected that we'd come in around $6.8, $6.9 million. So I was off by $800,000, but it was a good direction to be off. So if there's any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer that. And so that's it.
Bill, did you have a question?
Yeah, very quickly. Previously, we talked about having in reserve a certain percentage of that LGIP money, about 50%. We're holding at that at this point.
Yes, you know, the resolution that this council passed or the previous council passed still is intact. That resolution is dependent upon whatever the current council wants to do. You can change that percentage at any time that you want to and change it to the needs of the village as you want. But based upon the way the resolution sits right now, that's what I would be recommending, is that
Good. Okay,
we
thank you.
go ahead and start to move that money, and then the mayor start throwing in some of the priorities that the village has.
Yes, sir. Stuart.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, Councilors. So I was thinking that the library annex, the village ought to just go ahead and do a engineering survey for the utilities there and pay for that. And let's get that done so that they can go ahead and complete their planning for the annex, and that way I think that'd be a good use of the money. I do agree with the Jones property. Let's get it demolished and get it rehabbed. I think, isn't there more? I was under the impression there was a lot more money sitting in the bank above what we had spent. I thought I'd heard some number, but I'd like to know how much do we have in the Wells Fargo bank that's above our expenditures?
Well,
Go ahead, Ron, sorry.
Counselor, we always have a certain amount of money in the bank that we need to have available if we go forward with a grant. And that money, that figure changes on a daily basis, but it's, you know, it's usually over $5 or $6 million that we have sitting there, which includes some of the money in Santa Fe. But as far as the library goes, we're still waiting on the library annex that they're talking about. We're still waiting for a plan to be presented to the Parks and Recreation Commission for that project to go forward.
My understanding was that they didn't even know where the utilities were located. And I think that if that's something that's holding up the annex drawings and plans, we just ought to go ahead and pay for that survey and have that done. So then they can firm up their plans and know exactly where they want to put that annex.
Yeah, that would probably be a step. We just started doing that over here with the rec center is going to go. And so that will be a good step to take. However, it's going to need a site development plan, and we're going to have to come to a consensus about where we're going to put that building. And it's got to be presented to the Park and Rec Commission by the people who are actually, talking about what they're going to do.
Yeah, but I mean,
So
the
there's
utilities,
quite a few steps there.
yeah, I know, but the utility survey would be one identification that irregardless of the site development plan, then you
It's
know
not going to change.
where it goes. Yeah.
No, that's a good point. But the things that we're talking about, are the low hanging fruit, the sewer line. If we don't get funding to do the Jones property, if we don't have Brownfield, if Brownfield from the EPA doesn't pay for that, we can get that done. We're getting Dennis Friends who are going to help us with or probably pay for the animal services place. So, and we may need to modify our site development plan for that. So, there's a lot of steps involved, but yes, I agree. We need to go ahead and keep moving forward and try to get things done. It's a whole lot easier if we don't have a building there and we can actually lay out what we want and get a good design. And we're hoping to get a report. In fact, I talked to Jim Wright just yesterday. We'd like to get a report from that group doing the performing arts facility in September, second meeting of September. So we all sort of understand where this may be going and what we're going to have. And then we can decide, how to move forward. So we have a couple of months in there to work with. And the amount of money is like $800,000 that we can actually work with without ever getting into the LGIP funds.
Yeah, I understand. And also I understand too, that we really won't know how much extra revenue we'll have from this year until the December audit.
Yeah. It'll be a while. Any other questions? You have anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Counselors forum. Anybody have anything they want to talk about? Stuart, do you have something?
Yeah, Mayor, I just got off of a meeting this afternoon for the MTP. We had a safety committee, and they're in the process right now of drafting a resolution for the Metropolitan Regional Planning Group. And the idea is that safety is going to be priority one on projects that are coming along in terms of street safety and school safety. I think also as a part of our aspect of it, we probably ought to think about if we don't have a safety action plan, maybe we should consider drafting one. They have facilities and people that are available to help us with that planning process. Also, the Federal Highway Department or our associate administration also has a good website for developing these safety action plans. And I think if we do something like that, we can entertain some additional funding possibilities. So anyway, we're going to meet again at the end of the month, but I think the MTP will probably meet before that, but we're pushing forward with that safety action plan.
And he's going to come, Stuart Montiel is going to come.
Yes, I talked to him today and he's, yes, he'll be here one way or the other. I think he said it's on the way home, so he can drop by.
Okay. Anyone? Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. First, I want to thank Chief Martinez for allowing several of us to use his rubber boat on Monday. A most comfortable ride and a great parade. So thank you. I also want to thank members of the committee that reported during our last meeting on the potential upgrade to animal services. It's a huge step in the right direction. However, I do have a couple of suggestions. We hope we only have to do this once. So it's important to get it right. Statistics were cited describing an average number of animals coming into animal services over the course of the past year. What the numbers failed to include was the hoarding situation which occurred in the previous month to those statistics in March of 2021. In February of 2021, 65 animals were removed from a Corrales home. Animal Services was able to place these animals in a variety of settings, but it took several days. This is not an isolated incident, as the village periodically faces these situations. These statistical averages also fail to show surges which occur during the course of the year. Some weeks, a dozen animals may come in and other weeks, none. At the day of the last meeting, for example, there were 4 animals in the care of animal services and 6 by the next day. Currently, there are 4 animals. Animal services needs to have adequate space for temporary holds when these surges occur, even when it's not every week. I suggest increasing the number of runs from 3 to 5. The cost differential is marginal, but it provides flexibility for animal services officers. I would also like to get a more definitive description on how cats will be accommodated in the new facility. My second suggestion would be to consider another location for the facility. It appears as if the current plan would attempt to shoehorn the building into land within the village administrative complex. A location with limited space should not be the driving force when attempting to meet the needs of the village. We discussed some of the concerns with previously with P&Z. Perhaps a better alternative would be to locate it on village property behind the fire station in the north end. There is sufficient space after considering the needs of the fire department and the Skafka easement. Water and electrical can be run from the firehouse, and any sounds coming from the building would be away from populated areas and the village complex. It would also eliminate any concerns with P&Z. Since funding may not be a concern, I'd like to have a design with input from animal services and a definitive timeline presented to the council if possible by our next meeting on the 26th. As an aside, and Councilor Murray and I have discussed this, the vacated animal services office may provide a secure site for our voting machines in the future.
So our next meeting is the 19th. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
So perhaps,
The 19th.
I don't know, we can get it that soon, perhaps the next meeting, maybe the first meeting in August.
Okay,
We can have
Okay.
something a little more accurate. Also, where we put it, this was just sort of, okay, we saw it here, we thought, well, it might fit there.
Yeah.
So we haven't really looked at the amount of coverage, the amount of impervious surfaces that we're generating, and we may be beyond the appropriate level for this facility, and it may have to go someplace else. And we have to look at that. You're right.
I'm just thinking it's village-owned property, so we don't have, and I don't think it would be a problem that we might face with P&Z.
By September, October, we may have more village-owned property. Who knows? So,
I'm sorry, we may have more. We have me,
well, we may. I mean, it's a possibility.
I'm sorry, I missed them. I'm serious, that was a serious question. We may have more what?
We may have more village-owned property.
Oh, village home. I heard you say that.
Oh, do you think I was, I have to go up to Skafka very frequently and sign documents. And I asked him one time, so how many acres do I own now?
Exactly.
No,
And because I was thinking, and Mr. Mayor, if I may.
yeah, go ahead.
uh,
Oh, sorry, Bill, are you through?
Yeah,
if I may,
yes, thank you,
Thank you, Bill.
thank you.
Thank you. I only brought it up because, that's in my district out there, but I would just, we want to look that area over. Like you said, it's not too near too many people's homes and so forth. But on that consideration, since we're just having an open discussion about it, take a look at maybe how we could re-look at what we agreed to over here, rather limited, and we can make it a little bit better. I really would like to be able to have the containment of the noise to be a particular issue, but second to that, as well as maybe some more covered area, not up to and including the noise, but just for the humane treatment of the animals that are there. Since we have a little more space, maybe some more covered area
For them.
for them
play.
themselves and because we have those corrals down there at the other end for the horses and so forth. So we have to take a big look. So I appreciate you waiting until the next, so we can have those kinds of discussions with people real close to the area and ourselves having that conversation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure enough.
Mayor,
Yes,
do you have any
absolutely.
thoughts as to whether or not we're going to have 1 or 2 meetings in August?
So right now, there's one meeting in August. And I don't know how you guys feel, and we should discuss this come December, because I really think cramming everything into one meeting is real difficult on
Yep.
all of us.
Yep.
And it's difficult on the individuals who come here and listen or who listen online, because then that gives you a really long meeting. So I think we need to think about in the future that we go ahead and stick with 2 meetings, except for times when there's holidays, like, Christmas and Thanksgiving, maybe that's reasonable. But right now, we only have 1 meeting in August, and we'll try to live with that.
Okay.
I hate to keep pulling you guys in,
Okay. Well, we get the big bucks.
Okay, yeah, right. So who's next? Anybody else want to talk? Okay. So I guess we'll open up for Cornelius Forum.
Thank you.
Okay, first up, we have Anthony Wagner. And if you could state your name and address for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes.
Anthony Wagner.
Anthony, you can pick up that microphone.
Oh,
instead of-
okay,
I think you just had to,
okay.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm Anthony Wagner with Wagner Farms. I represent Corrales Farmers here tonight, along with Rudy Perea. I was going to say a couple things. As you know, the water has been very important to all of us. And I wanted to really make an announcement. The Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District is going to have a meeting on Monday, July 11th at 3 o'clock. And we would like we invite you all to go to this meeting. The CEO of the Conservancy District, he's going to give an update on the Corrales siphon and the pumping systems we have here in Corrales. And this gives us an opportunity for Corrales farmers and the community to give their input to the board of directors of the Conservancy District. The farmers here in Corrales were very concerned. We would like to get the Corrales siphon replaced as soon as possible. And we'd like to have that addressed. And I just want to let you know, yeah, he's going to give his update, and then there'll be time for public input. And the offices are at 1931 2nd Street Southwest, just off of Avenida Cesar Chavez. So we would appreciate all your support. A lot of farmers are going to get up and say some words about the siphon, what they would like. And so we would appreciate your help. And thank you, Mr.
hey,
Mayor.
thank you, Anthony. Appreciate it.
And next, Rudy Perea. And if you could also state your name and address for the record. And you'll also have 3 minutes.
My name is Rudy Perea. I live in Corrales, 7271 Corrales Road, the north end. Can't do much without water. Yeah, I came to the last meeting we had over here, and the person in charge of the Rio Grande Conservancy, he stated, there were some representatives and they wanted a bid. And they said there's money, they can get it, but he couldn't give them a bid. What frustrates me, he can get bids to lease this equipment and do everything else. Made that fall, put rocks, but he doesn't have no intention of fixing the infrastructure so we can get water. How do you want to get water if you don't have the infrastructure to get it? Those pumps aren't doing the job. Everybody's not getting the water they need. I sell at the farmer's market. I grow fruit. Trees die. It takes 10 years to get enough. Plus, I'm gonna have to wait till the drought ends. Who knows how long it's gonna, I'm not gonna plant trees if I'm gonna lose them. So I'm hurting, and there's not gonna be any local fruit. You're gonna just have to get it from out of state. This isn't helping us. I feel he's not doing his job. He's not paying attention to us. He didn't say when he was gonna get an appraisal. I don't know. Did you guys hear different? When he was gonna, because they asked him, the representatives, they could get the money. Well, if this guy can't do his job, we have to file a complaint against him in writing, write to the board, write to the governor, and have him removed. He wasn't elected, so he can be fired immediately. That's how I feel. If you guys, how are we gonna get water without the siphon? If they don't even, if he doesn't even want to do the infrastructure. And I've heard things, that he leasing this equipment is helping him, financially, so I don't know. But it's funny, he doesn't want to do it next year or the following year. And he said he wasn't going to even try to get an appraisal till October, So why is he stalling? If he can't do the job and he's getting paid to do it, I feel he should be replaced. And we should get somebody that can do it and ask them the person they replace it with, if they can put the infrastructure for Corrales. And if we don't say nothing, Albuquerque doesn't care, Belen, further on, they don't care. So that's all I have to say. I think the village should file a complaint on him and recommend replacing him. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Who's next?
That's it.
So under new business, consideration action and approval of amendment number 4 to the franchise agreement for waste collection between the Village of Kraus and Roadrunner Waste Service Incorporated. And we have representatives who are going to talk about it.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Lorena Quesada with Roadrunner Waste Service, and I'd like to introduce you all to Adam Myers. Adam Meyer. He is Adam Meyer. He is our new district manager for Roadrunner Waste. Let me put on my glasses so that I can read. We're here tonight to seek approval on amendment number 4, which will allow Roadrunner Waste Service to increase the rates by 27% for the trash and recycling service we currently provide in the area. The last approved increase was in 2018. And of course, a lot has happened since then. One of the biggest is that we had this year was the Sandoval County landfill increased our disposal rate. We were paying $17.40 per ton, and that was increased to $30 per ton. That's about a 70% increase just on the landfill. That's just their disposal rate. That's a 70% increase. Of course, we've all seen what's been happening with diesel. Just comparing that from 2018 from our last increase to about last week, that's about a 50% increase. That's a 50% increase. Of course, along with all our labor costs and the materials and everything else that we have all seen going up. So I want to thank you in advance for considering and approving the 4th amendment to the current contract. We're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yes, sir, Bill.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. One of the things I was surprised I didn't see listed in our packet was the previous rates for comparison. So tonight, the 27% is the first time I've heard what the increase was going to be. It would have been nice to be able to have 2 charts comparing what the previous rates were and what the new rates will be. Hypothetically speaking, if diesel prices were to come down from, what are they now, like $5.15, $5.30, something like that, down to $2.50. Might there be, and this contract is for 2 years, I believe?
Correct.
Might there be, after a year, might there be a reconsideration, take a look at that? Wages are not going to go down.
Right.
Your other considerations may not go down, and this may not be, the cost of the fuel may not be a significant portion of that. But just something to keep in mind that, to take a look at if that should come up. Don't need an answer tonight. Okay.
Thank you.
Great. And welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions? Thank you. So I need a motion to approve amendment number 4, franchise agreement for solid waste collection. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion for and a second for amendment number 4 to franchise agreement for solid waste collection. Any further discussion? Anybody else have any other questions? How do you vote? Counselor Miera,
Yes.
Counselor Woolman,
Aye.
Counselor Knight,
Aye.
Counselor Burkett,
Aye.
Counselor Murray.
Aye.
It's approved. So the amendment number 4 to franchise agreement for solid waste collection by Roadrunner Waste Services Incorporated is approved. Okay, so now we move on to discussion of ICIP list projects and rankings. Has everybody had an opportunity to look through that? Let me say, first of all, that the rankings are to some degree important, but they're, as long as it's on the ICIP, as you know, they have a chance of, the legislators have a chance to pick it up. Does anybody have any comments or any questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors. And looking through this, especially where we have, like the Parks and Rec improvements, anything requiring a site development plan. I'm would like to see that we push forward and have these plans completed by the end of the year by a lot of these commissions and the Parks and Recs and whatever. So that when we come up to the legislative session, we can tell them we're shovel ready. All we needed now is P and Z Commission approval for a site development plan. It seems to me that Parks and Rec, we're already into about a year on that bond issue. We've got 2 more years to spend that money. So I think we need to move forward and get these plans going, get them drawn up, get them finalized, and then we can push forward with site development plans by the P and Z. We're shovel ready at that point.
So the park, I'm sure you were just using it as an example, but let me just tell you about the new gym in Parks and Rec. That is presently undergoing a site development plan. And we are going to start construction on the gym part, phase 1, probably September, October, or October anyway. The materials probably get here in September. We hope, because there's this problem with the supply chain. We're anticipating another grant for the second phase that we have not heard yet because that hasn't actually been, I guess, released or whatever. But that grant application is already pretty much done. So by the time the legislature meets, hopefully was it November? No, I mean in January, but we start talking to them in November, don't we? Yeah. September. So hopefully by the time we start talking to them in September, we should have a site development plan for the whole project that has been approved. I think we're on the planning and zoning for August. So you'll have that. If we get rid of this, if we demolish the Jones property, we should also have at least started on that project by September, started on the site development plan and actually hopefully have an architect involved in drawing it. The parking lot, that site development plan, I think is in the mill, correct, Ron? So we've actually been doing something and we hope to have a lot of those things available by September.
Well, that's good because, we very rarely hear about these things until we get into a meeting like this and start discussion. But like the fire substation or the Angel Hill fire line and water tank, the Corrales interior drain project, and like you say, the Performing Arts Center, these things all require site plans. And anything that requires a site plan, I think we ought to really say, let's have the plans done by the end of the year. So then when the legislation session starts, we're shovel ready and there's no issue that they
agree
can't
with you
come back to us and say, well, look, you're just dreaming at this point.
I agree with you completely. And I do believe that more information on the Angel Hill development will be coming forthwith. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Total agreement with Councilor's statement. I only have one question. There's nothing in here based on his statement that requires design or development. We're not asking for any design or development monies.
Well, can you help me there? Because some of these say design and build. Design and construct,
Yeah, not that there's anything-
design and build. I mean, there's a lot of that in here. I mean,
You're asking for the money for designing and building.
well, what we're yes, to some degree, but we're going to be doing a lot of the design before we get the money.
Well, that's kind of where.
And that's what he's talking
That's what I'm talking about.
Correct.
Well, because they do much better up there when people come in and ask for design and development and they just have a thought process, an idea, and nothing else. And so that puts them at the bottom of the barrel. But when you come in and you already, like you said, made some steps towards design and development, I mean, you may be asking to reimburse yourself for that. That's all usable money. But it's better if you don't even ask for that kind of money. You just want to finish the shovel-ready part that you're talking about.
Well,
Is more important, and I think it's going to flow a lot better.
it's nice to use the design money that you've already spent for the design as your match that you sometimes are required
Right.
for your grants, for your the variety of different grants, or not necessarily, it's not loans. But many of the grants require, like the FEMA grant that we're talking about potentially getting for some of our fire suppression work. the EPA grant that we may need to reach out to for the sewer line work. Those all require matches. And so those are sewer line issues are being addressed, they're being designed. I think Broman, that's one of his tasks. He's also doing the parking lot. So he's very busy right now, our village engineer. Yes, I agree with everything you've said, and I think it's a whole lot easier to get the money to finish the project when you have several partners already involved. So the more people, the more places like EPA or FEMA or whomever it may be, you go to the state legislature and you say, okay, we only need $500,000 or $300,000 to finish the project.
Exactly.
And that's when you get your money.
That's right.
I agree.
And then they always give us 2 years. They always give an extension if you ask for one, but you try to avoid those extensions. But they're really getting tougher on getting them done in 2 years.
We would like to get everything done that we ask for within 24 months.
Got it.
That to me is one of the things that I've learned very well over the years in my involvement elsewhere. And I think that that's a goal that we should all focus on. Yes, Bill.
Mayor, a quick question. There are 7 items on here for the fire department. I was wondering if the chief, if this is the priority, as you go down this large list and you pick out the fire suppression, the fire pumper truck, those kinds of things, fire equipment, is that the order of priority that the chief has in mind?
They're not listed on the list in any particular order.
Right. But as listed here, is this the priority, or do you have another way of looking at this that would give us a priority idea?
Chief, do you want to talk? It's my impression, based on my discussions with Chief Martinez, that everything's a priority. And whatever he can get, that's what he wants, number one.
Right.
And if you say to him, how much water do you need to fight a fire? He says there's never enough.
Mayor, thank you. I was having a little difficult time. My ears are really plugged. So can you clarify the question?
So as I counted, I think there are 7 items under project title. For fire suppression, fire pumping truck, etc. Is there, do you have in your own mind a priority? It's not listed in priorities here, but do you have a priority listing of the 7 items go through? Fire suppression, I know is critical. And you want to get that done.
Yeah, and like the clerk mentioned, they're not in any particular order.
Right.
Mayor mentioned, yeah, we need water to fight fire. That's one of the essential elements. But, and yes, everything here is on a priority. If I had to retask and prioritize this list, I'd be happy to do so.
I'm just thinking in terms of when they face the fire in Santa Fe, when they had to take the list and go to the legislators, and you have 7 items on there, we may not get the bottom 3. And I want to make sure that you get, we have it in our minds, what is most important for you.
Yes, sir. Mayor, Counselor, and I thank you for acknowledging that. Over the years, with some of my lists as far as priority, I have prioritized some of our needed items based on the department. And we've been awarded stuff that wasn't even on my priority list because that fit kind of their cache of, yes, we have a little bit of funds here, we might be able to do this, and it was a lower priority. So it's kind of hit and miss.
Yeah.
Based on, because obviously my fire suppression one is a continued one that I have every year, and it's a big budget item because we have a lot of catching up, a lot of fire suppression lines to run in the village. And the fire trucks are just part of my regular schedule of trying to replace, fire apparatus. We have a retention. We look at 20 years, trying to keep a fire truck for 20 years. And I already have some that are already over that. And the buildings, the fire substation, that's one that I've mentioned, like on Loma Larga, and we got funding for that. And we're in the process of trying to do the site development plan and trying to do some improvements on that property that the citizens in the area have kind of requested that they want, some fencing and just kind of clean it up a little bit. So we're trying to accommodate that with some of the funds, but The fire training facility, as you know, I'm trying to, recruit, retain firefighters, not only paid, but volunteers. And I know you guys mentioned site development plan. This was part of my site development plan back in 2005, I believe, where it already included a training facility. So I've been seeking funds via grants and so on for those that this long. So that's just kind of where I'm going with, give you a little briefing of how I came up with this list. So
So as the mayor said, everything's a priority, basically.
I'm sorry,
So as the mayor said, pretty much everything is a priority.
pretty much everything. Yeah, yeah.
And this is sort of why we went and we've started applying for that loan through the Clean Water
Yes.
Revolving. Fund.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we still have to pay it back, obviously, but it's pretty much no interest.
Right.
And so if we aren't, let's say, as successful as we like, that doesn't mean we're not going to move forward on any of these things that we need to get done. It just means that the state may not be partners with us this time around. We believe, I think Anthony and I both agree on this, that next summer may not be as kind to us as this summer has been so far. We may have a problem. And we don't want to be like northern New Mexico next summer. And in fact, it may not even be summer because the fire season extends now almost year round, right?
You're right.
So we just want to move forward and we want to do it in the most effective and fiscally responsible way, using the funds we have and trying to get matches, trying to get partners, and show them, as Ron stated earlier, we know how to spend our money when we have it. And, we may have to go out and buy some fire trucks to help Anthony out.
That $5 million fund that you mentioned, is that a competitive? Is that fought for competitively?
I don't believe so. I think Chuck said we just have to get approved and they'll loan us the money. I mean, they'll loan however, we've asked for, was it 12 billion or 20 million for the sewer? From the same group? Huh? 12? Yeah, and we've asked, hey, can you loan us 12 million for our sewer line? You get to pay it back over 30 years
Right.
at 0.01% interest rate. So, why should we be paying 2 or 3 or 4% interest on bonds if we don't have to?
Sure.
Anyway, that's sort of where we are. And I sure wish I could give you some really firm stuff. But it just, I know it takes a long time for things to move along.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, Stuart.
Thank you, Mayor. Bill, I don't know if you were done yet or not.
Yes.
So have we given a thought then about the general obligation bonds coming up in 2024, about what we might be putting up before the election?
Thank you, Chief.
I have to, 2024 bonds? What?
We have not had a discussion with the bond.
No, Ron says no discussions at this point.
Okay. So anything on this list might be fair game
For,
the general obligation bonds.
I would be more inclined to use the Clearwater revolving fund for anything we can that qualifies, which is fire and sewer. And then go after, if we're eligible for bonds, and that's one of the issues this last time around. They didn't think it was wise for us to go out and sell bonds because it would change our property tax bill. So we'll see what they say in 2020, I guess it'd be 2024.
Okay.
And see what happens. And yes, I'm still of the mind that I'd like to spend other people's money if we can. And use our money just as a small match, maybe 20-25% if we can. And that's sort of, we're searching, we're looking, we're asking and doing what we can.
Well, that's why I was more or less, I'm sorry. I was just why I was more or less, I'm kind of harping on that site development plan because then, I think they're more inclined to support us.
I think you're correct. Did you have any? Oh, yes, Mel.
Thanks, Mayor. I just had one quick question. So there's 27 items on here and we know we won't get to present all of them or get money for all of them. Does the village have a top 5 or, we talked a lot about during the campaign about the sewer and extending that. Would that be a priority?
So I would say to you, and Melanie, you have to tell me the exact date, that you guys should pick, each of you should pick your top 5. And then give it to Melanie and we'll compile that. And that's the way we'll rank the top 5. I would focus on fire suppression, sewer, and our rec center, because we may need some more money for the rec center, the second phase. Those would be my 3, not 5, but 3. And then, if we can, so a lot of times the legislators, they may have, each of them may have $50,000 left from their packet, their money that they can spend. They kind of cobble it all together and they give it to, say, Corrales, and they give us $250,000. Well, that's almost a fire truck, I think, Anthony, is that correct? Almost, about half, about half.
One wheel.
So then we could cobble up maybe 250,000 to buy the fire truck, So I would go through this list and pick your top 5. Give that to Melanie. It has to be in when, the 30th?
Well, I have to have it to the state by August 19th, but we have to do a resolution approving the list. And that really needs to be done at our next meeting on the 19th.
Oh, so we got to do it in August. July.
Yeah, so it needs to be done before the next meeting, and the packet has to be done before the 15th. So really, I would need your lists by the 14th. So
Okay.
next Thursday.
Okay,
Thank you.
yes, Zach, you've been waiting patiently.
2 quick questions. One, the $8 million for the Performing Arts Center, where
Yes.
did that number come from? I mean, it's obviously a large number, but I know construction costs are significant.
I think that's high.
Okay.
But it might not be, because the construction cost for the gym phase 1 was $300 a square foot. And so if you just take that $300 and you multiply by 15,000, you got 4.5 million.
Right.
But there's probably going to be more money in the Performing Arts Center, because the gym is a lot of empty space.
Mhm.
And 8 million is sort of a guesstimate.
Okay.
That's my impression, and I'm not sure who came up with it.
I think it was a rough estimate from facility build that Lynn asked for back in January.
Oh, that's when we
Yeah,
still had the
when-
commercial
Yeah,
kitchen.
well, when we thought we were going to get this tsunami of money and we submitted our vision plan to the governor.
Yep.
And we needed a number. And so Anthony went to facility build and said, this was our rough idea, give me a number. And that's kind of where that came from, is just a rough estimate of, with the commercial kitchen and all the bells and whistles.
Okay.
That was about what we would be looking at.
So we have opted to take the commercial kitchen out of that.
Okay.
There's a lot of pushback against the commercial kitchen in a performing arts center. And they would rather stand alone, they being the people who are involved in using a commercial kitchen, or who are talking about a commercial kitchen. So we're looking at that possibility as to where it could be.
Okay.
And that's in the mill right now. 2 of the members of the previous group on the Performing Arts Center, they sort of separated out, and they're kind of working on the commercial kitchen concept. And as soon as we have more information, you'll get to see it.
Okay. And then my second point, just a general comment on using bonds versus using this really low interest rate loans. I obviously think fiscally it's better to use the loans. What I like about the bond process, though, is the citizens get a vote on a very focused, large amount of money going to something like the rec center or conservation easements. They get to say, yes, this big dollar amount, we want to go to this very specific thing. And I think if we're going to spend big piles of money on specific things, we need to find a mechanism to involve that as well. Where right now we could just, if we had the loan, we could, as 6 people up here, vote yes and spend that money. But if we do it as a bond, the citizens get to participate in that vote as well.
So their participation, in my mind, is they've elected you guys.
Agreed. Agreed. I think
And
that
they can tell you what they think, and they will.
correct. No, and that's fair. I agree. That's how the process works. But I think there's some value, like right now, when I look at this and I look at the Parks and Rec Center, it should be number 1 on the list because it's the one thing on here they specifically voted for. They
And
went to the polls.
it's moving forward.
Yep.
It is moving forward.
But I just assign more value to it, I think, internally because of that process. And I agree, we will hopefully represent what they want with or without that vote, but I do think there's some value in having it. But I also think there's also a huge amount of value in saving 2% as well. And I'm sure all the citizens would appreciate that.
So to answer another question before you ask it, do you remember how long they said for the entire phase 1, phase 2 Parks and Rec? Was it 18 months?
Yes.
So if they start in September, October, it'll be 18 months from the time they start to the time they finish. Ballpark, could be less, but they said outside timeframe is 18 months. Say what? Yeah, for both phases.
Right.
Now, the reason they're separated is because the first phase is about 2.5 million or a little under. And the second phase, we're hoping to get a grant. It looks real good for us. As the lady who's involved in it up in Santa Fe said, it's like a 95%er. So that means that there's a chance that it won't happen. So we're thinking optimistically that it'll move ahead. But we don't need to worry about that right away because there's a lot more to do before we get to phase 2. Okay, yes, sir.
Is that the quality of life application? Is that the quality of life grant?
Yes.
Application? I had a question about the Performing Arts Center as well.
Yes.
8 million, or whatever it is. How would that be phased? Is that something that we're going to go forward with that number? Obviously, there's a design, there's architectural, all those phases, but what time frame are you thinking about? And is there a way that we could have a presentation from the committee, both on that as well as the interior drain?
They are going to come here.
Okay.
I said earlier, the second meeting of September.
Okay.
And we're hoping by that time we'll have a very good, firm conceptual plan. Now, we actually have a plan that's been drawn by Facility Build.
Right.
But that's before we pulled out the commercial kitchen. So there's going to have to be some modification of that. I think the architect did that, didn't he? Yeah. So it's pretty far along, actually. It won't take that much more to get to where you could actually construct it. But remember, we don't have any money yet.
Right.
We still have a building we need to tear down. So, I
Do we have
mean,
an estimate on that?
say again?
Do we have an estimate on?
Yes, Facility Build gave us an estimate of $192,000. So if we don't get anything from Brownfield with the EPA, they're the ones who do this hazard mitigation or whatever, the asbestos stuff, then we can move along and pay for it ourselves out of the money that we have. I would rather let somebody else pay for the majority of it. And we could give them a little bit as a match. But I think it'll help if we do that. We have done something. We have a space that we can work with and make plans for to move on with the construction. We can get a firm design. And then as Stuart has pointed out, we have something ready.
Yeah.
We have it shovel ready and we can go get the money, regardless of whom we get the money from. Okay.
Good.
Yes, sir.
So the other thought come to mind too was, and I think Bill alluded to this, is this secure storage for our voting machines. I don't think having it in the village administration is a good idea. I think we need to move that out if we're going to have voting locations. Like Bill said, if we empty or move the animal services and have those 2 rooms available, we might be able to secure machines there. But I think also the rec center used to be an excellent voting site. And if there's any way we can incorporate a secure facility in that for the voting machines, I think people would be a lot happier than they would be standing in the hallway of the administration.
Melanie, would you like to comment?
Yes, so that is dictated by the election law. So state statute says that early voting must be done in the office of the village clerk in a room that is not used for anything else. So it has to be done in the physical building where the clerk resides.
But Melanie, the thing is, I look at Albuquerque and I look at all the early voting sites they have. Does that mean that they have to have an office in those early voting sites?
So their clerk is open for the first part of voting. Those convenience centers open up after the first, I believe it's the first 10 days of voting. So those early convenience centers aren't open the entire time, is my understanding. So, but either way, we would still have to have voting machines in the office of the clerk in addition to a secondary site. And then you have to pay at least 3 people to man that site.
And
So
I
it
think
does
that's,
increase the cost.
I think that's something we should consider or can we temporarily move the office from the administration to the rec center?
We can also opt into the general election, and then the state will pay for everything and they will let us do the voting at either the rec center or the senior or the community center
It's all the same
instead of
day.
in the office of the clerk.
So they're holding us hostage because we like to do our own thing then.
Yeah, those are our options.
We would rather not do our own thing.
Well,
We'd rather let the county take care of it.
well, the problem we have there too is you get that ballot, and it's going to be a mile long because you're going to have every other entity in
Actually,
that.
your ballot will still look the same. Because it'll only print, well, I mean, obviously, you're gonna have some
Wait,
general
wait.
questions.
You're
on
gonna
there
have
as well.
Sandoval County, you're gonna have SCAFCA, you're gonna have county commissioners, you're gonna have all those questions. And that ballot could
And-
get,
Okay, so hey,
Anyway.
hey, guys, let me just stop this a second. I'm gonna let Melanie talk. And then we need to get back to the agenda, which is the ICIP. The discussion about voting can be done. And probably, we've talked about this. We think it should be discussed because they're making it more and more difficult for us to run our own elections and more expensive. Am I not correct with that?
That is correct.
So we need to let the county probably take it over, and then it'll make it a whole lot easier for us here in the village, and it'll be accurate and it'll be secure. Melanie,
So I just.
I mean,
wanted to
Mel,
say,
excuse
you
me.
know, The only time we had to go into the clerk's office was with the Corrales election. Usually, 15 days before the general election, it's over in the other area over there, the community center.
yes,
Yeah.
And that's run by, so really, the only time you're looking at having to work with Melanie in her office is the Corrales elections.
Okay.
Exactly.
Other than that, it's over there.
okay, so that's all of that for this time, because
Okay.
our subject tonight, right now, is discussion of the ICIP. Is everybody okay with sitting down and picking their top five?
Yeah.
And getting that information to Melanie?
sure.
I'm sorry about that, Mel. I called you Melanie too.
I go by Melly,
Okay,
whatever.
all right. Okay. So have we finished? Have we beat that horse to death?
Just one quick
Yes,
question.
sir.
Wondering if the administration has a top 5 priority list,
Well, I told you top three in my mind. Did you have some you want to add?
right? Fire suppression, sewer, and the rec center.
I think we need money to finish that. Now, if you want to say animal services, well, remember,
Yeah.
they're going to pay, somebody's going to pay for that.
Yeah.
So we want to get funds where we don't have somebody paying for it.
Right.
We want to go and get legislative funds for that project if we can.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So one other thing, I wanted to give the police chief a chance to have equal time since we gave the fire chief. Todd, is there anything that you're wanting that's got top priority or?
He wants more people.
Like Councilor Murray, Mayor, members of the council, thank you. I appreciate that opportunity. And so I believe the sole listing for PD on there is the 195,000 for police vehicles and equipment. And that number was agreed upon because it doesn't seem super high to where it won't catch the attention of some legislators. We think it's a sellable amount is essentially what we're saying. And we should be able to get, we believe, 4 fully equipped police vehicles for that. And of course, we're looking at non-traditional options at this point to include hybrid or electric vehicles. And
Sometimes
of
it's
course,
worth the least
along with
amount.
that, we'd have to look into the charging stations and the other costs, there's, the market is really untested with respect to, public safety vehicles when it comes to electric and hybrid use. And so I'm sure that the equipment that we utilize is not going to be the same that
electric
we have with
vehicle, yeah.
gas powered vehicles and so forth. So there's a lot of moving parts here, but that the main thing, well, like the mayor said, the main thing is the people, between our local efforts and what the state's been doing for the retention efforts, we're doing what we can. We're actively recruiting. We have a new officer starting Tuesday, by the way, so moving in the right direction. And none of these problems are unique to the Corrales Police Department. I mean, everybody, in spite of huge retention bonuses and fairly high salaries, is having difficulty recruiting and retaining, but we are doing our absolute best in those respects. And of course, recurring expenses aren't something that we could ask for in ICIP requests. So that's not going to be on the list there. So it really does come down to the equipment, and our primary need is the vehicles because they wear out. We put a lot of miles on. We try and get about 6 years out of each car. And it's not always possible, like you saw the one that was parked out, by the fence there for a while by the cell tower. But in a nutshell, yes, the vehicle is the absolute most important thing, and that's where we think we can get a lot out of that 195,000, and we'll see what's available. You know, when I don't know if how many people have noticed we have two smaller Jeep Cherokees that we have for admin and detective vehicles. They're 4 cylinders. They're great on gas. You know, they're getting almost double the mileage of the big all-wheel drive Explorer SUVs, and it was certainly we were considering fuel prices, but also that's all that was available when we were able to get those two because other entities in the state canceled the order. So, but short answer is vehicles, and thank you.
All right, Chief, let me ask you this about the rest of the list. Do you have ballistic vests, laptops, radios, telephones, and that stuff? Does it have a life expectancy of, you know, between, does it wear out as well? I know laptops you would, yeah.
Council, I wouldn't say that they wear out, but the expiration date that they put on the body armor, the Kevlar level 2, which is for, you know, handgun fire, it's supposed to stop, is 5 years. So, you know, we've certainly had to use them longer than that. We've, you know, we've taken the old vest, you know, more than 10 years old out to the range and shot them and weren't able to penetrate them, but they have to sell more vests. So they put an expiration date on them. So, but we don't want to place our officers in any unnecessary danger. So we do try and stick to the 5-year replacement cycle. I think we're 3 years in from the last time we got everybody a brand new level 2 vest. And we also do have the level 4 vests that are supposed to withstand up to 30-06 rifle fire. And the ballistic helmets as well, the active shooter kits they're called. So we do try and replace them. And then when we have somebody of a unique size, say that we hire on, that we don't have a vest that's going to specifically fit them, we just send them down, get them fitted, and get them a new one, whether we have outside funding available or not. That's we have a safety equipment line item in our budget, and that's the main thing that we want to use it for.
So I'm sorry. Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
So I was going to also inquire about the VPN service within the cars. Is that something that you have complete coverage within the village if you were in to go after that service?
So I wasn't aware that ended up on the ICIP list. It might have just been lumped in with a technology request, because I don't believe that we can ask for something that has a recurrent expense on this. I think, you know, we have to just make the purchase and be done with it. So, since we're talking about it, what we're looking at is we have relatively new Panasonic Toughbook laptops, which are latest and greatest and pretty capable. As you're all aware, we are consolidated communications with the all of Sandoval County Regional Emergency Communication Center. Rio Rancho is the fiscal agent and of course the largest entity. So they have a pretty big say in what we're using as far as CAD, computer aided dispatch, and RMS records management system software. There's a little bit of displeasure with the current setups that we have. So I had a meeting with Captain Holt from Rio Rancho PD, who was their captain over communications. And he said if we were ever in a position to go to the in-car computer dispatch and record systems, and that would be a good time since we're all switching over, so we could get involved in the training from the beginning. And that they have a really good deal with a national mobile data provider. I don't think I'm supposed to mention the name, but you know, I'm not endorsing anybody, but basically we'd be getting the same bulk rates as the city of Rio Rancho. The VPNs would only be necessary to run the NCIC, the National Crime Information Center checks, you know, driver's licenses, license plates, criminal history checks, and so forth. And my understanding is that the city is trying to get us to be able to piggyback off of their service, and it's going to be a pretty minimal expense anyway.
So that's something you're going to, is it already in the budget for this year, or is it going to be included?
No, we're working on it. Yeah, I don't have final numbers yet. So that's something that we're gonna budget for if it's feasible. Yeah, we're just gonna see, you know, we might as well explore the option. There's pros and cons to it. You know, we're fortunate that we don't have just this call, you know, and you can't get airtime. You know, that's the main reason larger cities started going to that technology years ago. We're lucky we can still get on the radio. My radio's been on this whole time, you know, and we can still get on there and run a driver's license or a license plate. But if we do have that option and we can afford it, we'll certainly implement it.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Bill.
Yes, Mayor, Chief, two quick questions.
Yes.
You mentioned a couple of times the figure of 195,000, but our listing here has still needed 400,000.
Thank you.
I think that came from an old list.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
That's,
Oh, okay, yeah, I wasn't aware
You'll
that.
take- you'll take
amount
the
of
400.
rate- Absolutely, yes, sir. Yeah.
The second
Thank
question
you.
is, have you gotten the new vehicle for animal services as yet?
It is still at the shop getting outfitted, and part of the issue was the original truck that was ordered was a full-size half-ton Chevy Silverado. Didn't go through because of the microchip supply chain issues and so on and so forth. Second truck as well, but long story short, the equipment to outfit it that was ordered for the larger truck isn't fitting on the smaller truck, the Chevy Colorado. So it's up there at the shop. We own it. We have the title. It's insured. Melanie took care of all of that for us. So it's just a matter of getting the right equipment. It's all supply chain delays. And the stock trailer's up there as well. And the reason that doesn't have as much equipment on it, but the reason being when they do the vinyl graphics, they just assume do them all at once. And that's why they're going to try and do the truck and trailer at the same time. So they are there. It shouldn't be more than a few more weeks before they have that other vehicle. And then we were delayed. The state asked us if we could hold off on the new purchase, the second $40,000 award that was granted to us until I want to say it was September 30th, but I have the exact date obviously in the office. And then Raina and I had already signed off on that. So we'll get to work on that other vehicle in September.
Great, good, thank you.
So another thing you can prioritize, electric car charging stations.
I have a question about that.
Sure.
Chief just mentioned the possibility of hybrid vehicles,
Yes,
which may not require charging stations. Is that
Correct.
correct? They're internally charged,
yes,
right? As opposed to fully electric.
yes.
So in terms of performance, equal, less, about the same, oops, hybrid as opposed.
We don't know
have
yet,
the bid on
Counselor.
the
Yeah,
data
they just haven't been widely enough tested
Yeah.
in for law.
I'm not
enforcement
sure
to
that they're
use.
all available either. I mean,
Yeah, well, yeah. I tried to get one when we ended up getting those Cherokees. There's an Escape hybrid that's on the state contract. There's a few, I mean, my understanding is that the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police in Nevada bought up a bunch of Nissan Altimas because that's simply all they could get. Yeah, and then it's a matter of retrofitting them because most of the partitions and the light bars and the consoles for the radios and the controls and everything are kind of for just those handful of vehicles that you see all the time, the Tauruses and the Chargers and those things. So yeah, it's been a nightmare for everybody involved in the process.
But I'm thinking of primarily for people who live here in the village, have some charging stations.
And how do you envision that? Because I thought about this. So if somebody is coming to see Melanie and they go in to the administrative building and they're there for 15 minutes, I don't know how much of a charge they would get if they go to the library, or check out a book, that kind of.
I don't know that answer.
Yeah,
By the time if we get approved, we will have that answer.
okay.
But I know that we are going to have a lot of people in the village. We already have quite a few people who have electric cars.
Right.
It would be handy if we had some fast charging stations here in the village. And I believe that Joanne at one time was talking to somebody about getting 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Agreed.
So it's the good thing is we're looking at something like $200,000. I don't know how many that gets you. But that's a number that typically the legislators might cobble together that kind of money and say, oh, here, we're going to get you some electric car charging stations, which is not a bad deal. Yes, sir, Stuart.
Well, in addition to what his comment is, would we be charging them to charge their cars? Because if you make them out there for free, somebody's going to park it out there 24/7, and maybe.
No, it would be, you would be charged.
Okay.
Even the police and the fire department would have a charge, but it would be the village, obviously.
Yeah.
And we would own I would assume we would own the charging stations. So yeah, people would be charged, but we would have them for use.
Okay.
And I have a hybrid, the Ford Maverick. and it's great. It has lots of power. Now, I don't have the kind of stuff on it that the chief would put on his.
Right.
But, you know, it works very well. I get 50 miles a gallon.
And that's internal charging.
Yes.
Yeah. Great.
Okay. Are we ready to go to closed session? Anybody have anything further? Okay. I need a motion to go into closed session pursuant to NMSA 1978, section 10-15-1H8. We are going to convene an executive session for the discussion of the purchase, acquisition, or disposal of property or water rights by the public body.
Mayor, I move that we move into closed session.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we go into closed section pursuant to NMSA 1978, section 10-15-1H8. Counselor Muir, how do you vote?
Yes.
Counselor Woolman,
Aye.
Counselor Knight,
Yes.
Counselor Burkett.
Aye.
Counselor Murray.
Aye.
Okay.
Counselor Alsobuck is late to the meeting and I also vote aye.
He just joined us.
Counselor also Brooke,
Came for the good stuff.
better late than never, right?
So,
But he's not going to be able to be in closed session, is he?
right, yeah, so if I turn off the mic so that people outside the room can't hear you, then he won't be able to hear you. through Zoom.
Okay. Well, then,
But yeah, so if we could have somebody call, Counselor Alsabrook will have Ron Curry give you a call. That's
sure,
okay?
that's fine, my cell phone.
Okay,
I guess the question is, did he have any comments about the ICIP, you know, or maybe you can. you know-
Yeah, we moved on.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm fine with that.
all right, so I will pause the recording at this point and turn off the mics.
Okay. We're coming out of executive session. I need a motion to come out of executive session, and that was by Counselor Miera. And the second was by Counselor Mel Knight. How do you vote, Stuart Murray?
Aye.
Zach Burkett?
Aye.
Mel Knight?
Aye.
Bill Woman?
Aye.
And Counselor Miera?
Yes, sir.
Did you want to make a statement?
Just in conformance with the Open Meetings Act, we met in closed session on the potential purchase of or sale of real property. No other topics were discussed and no action was taken.
Okay, so I don't really have any announcements here, other than the fact that these are some July 19th items that we have on they're potentially on the agenda. Steve Montiel presentation. We have a liquor hearing on the Sandia Bar. We have a resolution for Harvest Festival. We have a budget adjustment resolution. We have year-end approval, quarterly report approval, capital asset approval, final budget approval, ICIP approval. And we may have another land issue approval. And then we're going to publish and post Chapter 18 amendment. Does anybody have anything they think is pressing for the next meeting? Or can we do it in August, September, or something like that? Now, you know, I'm going to do the September Performing Arts Center. And hopefully we'll have something about the animal facility, well, probably about the same time, maybe a little earlier,
Maybe in August.
maybe. You just, you know. Yes, sir.
So Mayor, I think there was some concern about having enough time for the budget to have it, maybe we require a special meeting for, I mean, is 19th going to meet Raina's ability to get the budget finalized with the numbers coming in from the state?
We won't know until next Friday.
So it may require a special meeting, maybe at the end of the month, just to get the budget resolution in
That's
place.
correct. Yes. We actually, we did talk about that. And a lot depends on when Rainey gets her information, is whether or not she can put it together. Okay. But we don't know. We don't want to have another meeting if we don't have
Oh,
to.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, but if there was a need for it, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Okay, that's good to know. But it would be probably just right before the end of the month,
Yeah.
like 28th or something like that.
It'd be the 26th, right? Didn't you
26th.
26th.
About the
Yeah.
26th?
Okay.
That would then give her enough time to finish.
So
up
we're
her
back to the
reports.
19th then.
Yes, we're having, our next meeting is July 19th, 6:30. Okay, does anybody have any other comments or business they want to bring before the council? Because the agenda is finished. Since the agenda is finished and no further comments, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.